Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well today. This is a day that I frequently put off, and there is a reason that I don't think I've ever filmed this for YouTube before, because it can just be a little bit faffy, a bit of a faff, a bit of a pain, because there's lots of getting up and getting down. It is hanging plant watering day, and I get a lot of questions from you guys about my hanging plants. How do I hang them? How do I water them? Which ones are really easy? Are there any low light plants? So today I thought I would attempt to make watering day a little bit more interesting, and I would take you through each of the plants. I would give you a little tour of them, tell you a little bit about them, and attempt to answer all of the questions that I get frequently asked about them. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learnt over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. So yeah, there's a lot to get through today, and I'm pretty sure almost all of them need attention of some kind. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. So although I have got some of my hanging plants hanging off curtain rails, and in fact I've got some just above me here and stuff like that hanging in the windows, most of the ones that you can see, and I'll put some clips in when the light's a little bit better because it's a little bit dark today, but most of them are on this hanging rail that runs all the way around the top of my room here. And one of the main questions that I get asked about is how the hanging rail works and how you can do it yourself. And to be honest, I really wish I'd made a more in-depth video of it actually going up, but in the video where I first moved into this flat, I shot a little bit of footage of my friend who's a handyman helping me, he put them up, putting them up for me, but I'll also link the rails down below. I'm pretty sure they are still on the website that I got them off, and they are essentially, again, I'll put some close-up clips in so that you can see, but they are essentially just like curtain rails, and I'm pretty sure he drilled them into the joists of the roof, so they're really, really secure. They can take quite a lot of weight. And although I've got a couple of things in semi-hydro that I will take you through as we kind of get to them, the majority of my hanging plants are just in soil. So although like after they've had a water, they're a little bit heavier, they're not gonna like bring the rail crashing down or anything. It's very secure. So the other thing I get asked about a lot, and let's walk and talk, but is whether or not I actually bring all of my hanging plants down every single time I water them, or whether or not I like water them in situ. And typically with most of my hanging plants, I do actually bring them down and I do give them a proper check over. I'll like check them for pests. I'll have a look at the front and backs of the leaves, give them a dust off if I need to. And I know this might seem, as I say, a little bit faffy, but bearing in mind, like most of the other plants in my collection, I'm walking around to and kind of seeing up close quite a lot. These ones, like I can't just like reach up and touch them. So I feel like, bearing in mind, I only do this like every week and a half, couple of weeks. I feel like it's a good idea to actually give them a proper check over, and touch wood. That means that I haven't had any major issues with my hanging plants in quite a while. So yeah, I've just got these little fold out steps that I use, and I climb up and I get them. But the one that I'm going to start with actually is the one that I don't get down very often, and it's my Scindapsus pictus exotica, I believe. And the only reason I don't take this one down, you can probably see actually if I tilt the camera up, is that it's this plant here, which is very long, very viney, and I've actually wound all the way around my curtain rail. And so although I absolutely could get it down, it is just more of a pain than it's worth. So I've been doing things this way. I think I've got it down maybe like 3 or 4 times since I've lived here, just to get it in the shower and like give it a blitz off. But typically I do just get like a bowl and put it underneath. I'll show you how I do it because I find it works quite well. But yeah, it's been working fine in the time that I've lived here, which has been about 2 years now. However, the others, I'll take you through them as we get to them. But yeah, to start with this one, I'm going to just fill up my watering can and get a bowl. And I've said it before as well, but I personally use liquid gold leaf fertiliser. I really like it. I use it for all of my plants. Also, the reason that it looks like I'm pouring so much in is just because there was only a little like scrappy bit at the bottom, and so I diluted it with water and shook it up so that I could make it go a little bit further. So yeah, I use that literally every single time I water my plants through, so long as they're actively growing. And despite what the British weather might be doing at the moment, we are still in growing season. So I'm just going to fill my watering can up with this. I've got my bowl here as well, and then we will take that over to my Scindapsus and give it a good drink. So yeah, with this one, I just hold the bowl underneath the pot and just pour it from above. And I know a lot of you have asked before why I don't just use pots without a drainage hole to avoid having to do this, but obviously if the water isn't able to run off the roots, then you do just run the risk of things like root rot and lots of issues that can come when the plant's having too much water. And although as I say it is a bit of a faff, I've just got so used to doing things this way. It feels like a really thorough and really effective way. And to be honest, it doesn't take me that long. Like, I stand here for a couple of minutes, that's all drained now, and I can move on to the next plant. And then typically with all of the other plants on this row, I will just, when I'm doing things off camera, just get them down one by one, give them a check over, give them a water through, like where they are, using a washing up bowl. But because I'm gonna kind of do a big check today and I'm gonna show you them and chat a little bit about them, I'm gonna get all of them down and bring them over to the kitchen. God, it's so rare that I get them all down in one go. Look how bizarre that side of the room looks without them. I think just I've got so used to seeing them all up there, it looks so plain. Oh, I don't like it. So although I'm doing this by the sink, I do typically tend to do my washing up bowl method again to water them, just because assuming there's nothing wrong with these plants, assuming I don't come across pests or anything like that, I'm obviously using lovely fertilised water and I don't have much of this stuff left, so I always want to make sure I'm able to reuse it where possible. So I'll water my plants through into this and then I can just pour it back into my watering can and do it again. But the first plant that I'm just going to check actually, because this one doesn't need watering quite as frequently as some of the others, but actually, yeah, it is quite dry. This is my Thai pink lipstick plant, and oh my God, I got this one at Malvern recently. I say recently, a couple of months ago now, but I totally fell in love with this plant. I said it at the time. I think the texture of it really reminds me of the Peperomia Hope, and that's a plant that I absolutely adore. However, I have struggled with, and it's not, I was going to say it's not as rewarding in its growth. That's a lie. It 100% is, but it's not as quick to grow. And this one is obviously beautiful and full and lovely and is giving me gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous growth. It's also one that I wouldn't necessarily have pegged as a low light plant, but I would consider the rail, in fact, probably most of the plants that we're looking at, to be able to adapt to lower levels of light, because it is, as I say, that is a rail that I don't use any grow lights on whatsoever. I have had some issues with plants up there before, but none of the ones I'm going to show you today have done badly. Like, they're all putting out growth and they all seem pretty happy. This one, as I say, could absolutely do well as well in higher light. And if I wanted to get it to flower more frequently, keeping it in higher light probably wouldn't be a bad idea. But it is still looking very happy and very healthy. And I just love the texture of it, like looking at it over in that side of the room, I just think it looks beautiful trailing down. So yeah, this is one actually, and one of the few that I've got in the nursery pot that it came in. It came in one of those like plastic hanging pots like that that's got a little inbuilt drainage tray. And although I used to hate the look of this and I would always change them straight away, now I've got so many plants, I'm like, it is quite practical because it's got this stiff hook. I can just kind of lift it on and off. Even if I don't have my steps, I can actually just reach up if I stretch and get this one down. So at some point I'm kind of thinking I might transfer all of my plants over to something like this just to make life easier. You can also get these really cool things that I actually tried a while ago that aren't, I'll explain in a minute why they're not that practical for my plants, but basically if I can find them, I'll link them down below. They're hooks that like, almost like blinds. I'm explaining this so badly, but you know when you like with a blind, like you can pull it and it will release and the blind will come down, and then you pull it again and it will stay up. It's kind of the same principle for plants. You hang them up and you push it up and it comes down and releases, and then again you do the same and it locks back into place. And I at one point was like, oh my god, I would love to do that with all of my plants. It would make my life so much easier. But the annoying thing is, because I can't actually reach most of them without getting onto the steps anyway, I'm like, if I'm going to be getting onto the steps, I may as well just take them all down. Oh, is this a mealybug? Oh, I found a mealybug. This is why you get your plants down, guys. But this is my Hoya Gratus, and it's one of my favourite Hoyas. I absolutely adore it. I've actually got two in my collection, and you'll see the other one when we get to the other side of the room. However, it's giving me some new growth here at the moment, and just look at that. Can you see those little white fluffy bits? That is mealybugs. So this is one that I'm not gonna water through with the same water. I can't actually, looking at it, I can't see any more. Like I'm looking down here and that all looks absolutely fine. But often where there are a couple, there's often more, and Hoyas are such a nightmare when they get mealybugs. So I'm gonna put this one to one side, and then I'll water it through with separate water afterwards, as well as getting some isopropyl alcohol out just to give those bits there a wipe over, because yeah, as I say, mealybugs are so annoying. I hate mealybugs so much. Just giving my hands a wash off as well to make sure I'm not spreading anything. But yeah, as I say, Hoyas are like, I mean, mealybugs just love like succulent plants, so they always tend to go for Hoyas, and especially the new growth on Hoyas, because it's succulent and sturdy, but it's, I don't know, it's just like a little bit more munchable, I guess. So I'm now just going to make sure that all of the plants on that rail, either side of it, are very well checked as well to make sure nothing has spread. But this is my Philodendron Brazil, which is doing pretty well. It's had several chop backs in my time of owning it, and it's definitely a philodendron that has taken quite a lot of neglect. This one actually quite often needs watering at a faster rate than some of my other ones on that rail, just because it's not quite so succulent. But yeah, I haven't watered this one in about 2 weeks, and it has been quite warm, hence why it's looking a little bit curly. But again, it's putting out lots of lovely new growth and everything, which is always really encouraging. And to be honest, at some point I keep thinking that I'm probably going to chop this one back, take some more cuttings and then pot them back up, because it's getting very, very long. But it's not as full as I'd like it to be, and it's not as full as it was before I moved. I lost a lovely big section of it in the move. I think it got trampled on. It was my only plant breakage though, so I was pretty happy that more didn't get damaged, but it's such a lovely one. I was gonna say a great beginner plant. I feel like pretty much all of these ones are great beginner plants, so long as you're not an overwaterer, just because, as I say, I do very little to keep them happy. And all of these ones, bar a couple of new additions like the one I just showed you, but all of these ones are also ones that have lived in lots of different environments with me over the years, and they've been really happy. So yeah, it's one I can't imagine not having in my collection. And then one of the ones I've got down here, which I've just hung on the oven for the time being, is one that I'm actually not sure if I'm going to put back on the rail, because this is one that I have said it before, but I really just don't like very much. And it is this Dracaena, I think it's a Dracaena Lemon Lime. I did chop it back a while ago, and as you can see, it's giving me a little bit of new growth there. But it's one that I've had for such a long time, and to be completely honest, I think the only reason it is still up there is just because it's like a bit of a space filler, because it feels weird if I've got like a gap with nothing there. So I need to find another low light or relatively low light hanging plant that would be happy in that area, because this one, I'm honestly like, I'm watering it just so that I've got something to put there. I don't particularly like it. That being said, I am going to water it just because otherwise I'll feel bad, especially if I'm not putting the Hoya Gratus back up there for the time being. So yeah, it's a plant that isn't typically grown as a hanging plant. As it kind of grows and matures, it almost, it's almost like, when I say Dracaena, it's almost got like a palm tree look about it. It has kind of a big trunky, again, almost kind of like a yucca. I'll find a picture and put it on the screen. So I'm not quite sure why I'm growing it in this way, but it is one that's been reluctantly with me for several years. I think probably about 4 years now. And I think it is time for it to find a new home. Another Hoya I've got up there that I absolutely love is the Hoya Carnosa. And this one, I've said it before, but it's really, really special to me because my friend's granddad actually gave me it as cuttings, I think just over a year ago now, about a year and a half ago. And it was a beautiful cutting he gave me, but oh my God, I could not believe how quickly the cuttings rooted. I'd never had a Hoya Carnosa before, so I was really, really excited to grow it. And again, it's one that has just done amazingly for me in pretty much every spot I've put it in, because it didn't start out on that low light hanging rail. It started out right by my south facing windows. It was growing beautifully for me there. And when I first put it on that rail, although I loved the look of it, I wasn't quite sure how it was going to do. And although it was dormant for a little while, I don't think it gave me any growth for about 4 or 5 months. Now that it's started again, it just won't stop, and it's really sizing up as well. Like, look at those leaves there. Those are new leaves and they are absolutely beautiful. Also, typically, I stay over the bowl and I let my hanging plants drain, and I have not done that, and I've just spilt water everywhere. But while that one's draining, I'll just show you how I hang the rest of them, because most of my hanging plants are in pots like this, which are just normal nursery pots, but I've decorated them with macrame cord just to, I think just like, I don't know, to make them look like they're not just plastics. I think sometimes that can look a little bit cheap, and it's not the vibe I was going for in here. I think if I was going back and doing things differently, like from scratch now, I might choose to play about with a few different colours, maybe some more neutrals, but I didn't know what kind of colour scheme I wanted to go for on my flats, so I was just like, do them all white. I can always paint them or decorate them. Some of the pots I have like done little splashes of colour or like done drawing on or added ribbon and stuff like that. But yeah, and the same with the macrame hangers. I've got a few different types of macrame hanger that I use, but this one is literally like just 2 crossed over pieces. And I've glued it at the bottom of my glue gun just to make sure it's extra secure. And then I get these S hooks off Amazon, which are super, super useful. You can get bigger ones, but these ones are literally the perfect size for the pole that I use. So again, I will link them down below. But yeah, everything otherwise, apart from the Hoya Gratus, looks absolutely fine and healthy. So I'm gonna go ahead and put them back up. And again, with the plants on this side, the hanging plants on this side, although I am going to do the ones in the window as well, I tend to do them separately. And I think I'll probably do what I did on the other side of the room, and I think I'll get them all down just so that I can, I don't know, I kind of just want to see what this side of the room looks like without all the plants on it. But as I say, typically I will just work through and like get 1 or 2 down, do them, let them drain, and then put them back up. But I'm intrigued to see what it looks like without them. So we're gonna do that. Again, that looks so weird to me. because I've just got so used to seeing them up there. It kind of makes the room feel wider, but I feel like it doesn't feel as tall. I think just because the plants being up there like makes you aware of the ceiling height. I don't know. Also, if it wasn't incredibly impractical to have all the plants down there, I kind of am digging that look. I think that looks kind of awesome. So on the end, I've got my Hoya SP Burtonate AF, and I've spoken about this Hoya before because I just think it's gorgeous. I love the like fuzzy texture of its leaves. And again, it's one that is so adaptable. Like, it is in such a low light spot where I've got it on the end of this hanging rail, and it's still giving me beautiful growth. And in fact, I was just looking at this bit here because this is a strand of it that was pushed out fairly recently, and it came in looking a little bit sparse and leggy, and I kind of thought to myself, do I need to increase its light? Do I need to change some things up? And although all of these leaves here have kind of like hardened off and developed, I've just noticed that now it's starting to push out some new leaves just there, which is so adorable. So yeah, it's giving me lots of growth actually, considering it isn't getting the best light. So it looks healthy as well. I'm gonna just give it a water through and then leave it to drain. Another thing as well that I thought that I could do if my plants weren't happy in this level of light, if they needed a little bit more. In fact, I can probably show you better, seeing as they're not on the rail. But I was thinking about getting some strip grow lights and just running them underneath the rail so that all of the plants were kind of lit up. And I also thought that would look really lovely. It would be a little bit of a pain in the ass to actually do, I think, in terms of like wiring the whole thing and not seeing loads of wires. But if I was gonna be here, if I was planning on being here for like the next 5 years, or maybe if I just wasn't so lazy, I would consider it. But as I say, on the whole, things seem pretty happy here as well. I do have lots of hanging succulents as well, and those ones typically live in the window. And in fact, I've got one, not hanging, but trailing. This is one of my Barrowstail plants. Say one of, because I've actually got 3 in my collection now. But this one just stays right in my south-facing window. And if I was to put this one on the hanging rail, it probably wouldn't be very happy. I could probably hang it in the window. But yeah, it seems happy in my shelf at the moment. So that is where it is staying. And then this is Hoya Gratus number 2. And I'm hoping there's no issues with this one. There's nothing immediately standing out being mealybuggy. No, even on the new growth of this one, luckily it looks absolutely fine. But how pretty is that? I do love the Hoya Gratus. Some types of Hoya just really don't want to trail. They really want to climb and like tendril around things. And the Hoya Gratus, in my experience, is one that can just be perfectly happy as a hanging plant and be so, again, I'm saying it about lots of these ones, but so low maintenance. Like, it's another one that I do very little too. It never really, like, aside from the odd mealybug, it never really gives me any grief. It's another one I just really love the texture on as well. Like, it's very leafy and like leafy. I know what I mean by that. I just love, like, amongst all my others, I can still really appreciate the like form of this plant. So yeah, it's one that I do not mind at all having duplicates of. And then this one, I said it in a video the other day, but this is one that is very good at telling you when it needs a water, and as you can probably tell, it's very curly, very dehydrated. This is my golden Pothos Epipremnum, and this is another one that I cannot imagine not having in my collection. I think it's just gorgeous. This one grows so quickly. It grows so quickly in pretty much any lighting conditions. It is so ridiculously adaptable. Again, it's not in the highest light spot where I've got it at the moment, and it's putting out an insane amount of growth. I'm pretty sure it is one that would also benefit from a pot upgrade though. I think it's probably very, very rooty in there because it gets curly very quickly. This one I'm currently watering probably about twice a week because it is just drying out so quickly. And as I say, obviously it is very warm. Heat also rises, and having these ones up so high, it does mean that they do dry out quicker than others. But compared to the other ones on the rail, this is the one that I'm probably getting down the most at the moment. But again, the really good thing with Pothos is, well, I mean, there's lots of good things about it, but obviously it's fairly cheap to buy, very quick to grow, very easy to care for, not particularly susceptible to pests. I don't think I've ever had an infestation on one of my Pothos plants. Kind of gets on with it and does its thing. And this one's doing well, and it's making me so happy. This is just a little neon Pothos plant that I think I got as cuttings at the London plant swap last year, and I've never had a neon Pothos before. And I know this is one that can be quite good, like quite common, quite easily accessible, and I'd always seen it and I'd always liked it. But yeah, it's also one that I haven't got in a homemade kind of DIY pot. I think I got this, ooh, where did I get this pot from? Maybe a local garden centre. But yeah, it's doing really well. It's actually starting to tumble out of the pot now as well, which is very exciting. And I must confess, I don't always get this one down to water. Sometimes I completely go against what I said at the beginning of this video, and I do just water it in its pot and just kind of guess the amount. But I am today going to take it out and just give it a really good water through. And this one is my Epipremnum Global Green. And oh my God, I was looking at, oh, I can't remember what video it was. I was looking at a clip from a video that I made like 2 months ago on this plant, and I could not believe the amount that it had grown. It has grown like that much in a couple of months, which is crazy. And I think because this one has a very similar form to like the Epipremnum Enjoy and stuff like that, which I'll actually show you in a moment. The Enjoy isn't the fastest grower. You kind of expect this one not to be that quick either, but it's so quick and it's so hardy and it's so beautiful. It's another one that I've just kept in, I say kept in its pot. I actually repotted this one out of one of my macrame pots into this because I was just like, it's so much easier. But no, it grows like a weed, and I think it's just stunning. And this is one that really needs a repot. This is my Hoya Linearis, and I say that because it's drying out so quickly at the moment. Probably on par, I would say, with my Pothos plant, my golden pothos, because I get this one down so much of the time. And Hoyas can be quite drought tolerant, but this one I think just has such a massive root system that it is just needing a little bit more than I'm giving it currently, because this one, although it's a very easy plant, had mealybugs so badly. And if you look at the texture of this one, see how condensed its foliage is. When this one gets mealybugs, it is an absolute nightmare. And I had to, oh my God, I had to chop the entire plant up. I pest treated so many sections of it so many times. I lost a load of the plant as well, which was very sad. And yeah, then I propagated lots of sections in water and I started potting them up together again, I think at the beginning of this year. And I now have got a lovely full plant back and I love it, and I'm so happy I've been able to save it, but it's not as beautiful and full as it once was. So yeah, but as I say, when I was potting up sections of it, already the root system was absolutely huge, and I did think it's probably going to outgrow this pot fairly quickly, and it has. So yeah, I need to repot this one probably at some point in the next week or two. I will add it to my list of things to do. And then I know I'm saying all of these are ridiculously easy, but the Aescananthus marmoratus, another lipstick plant. This is commonly known as the Black Pagoda lipstick plant. So easy, honestly, so easy. This plant has bounced back from so many things, and I think it's just stunning. Like, again, the undersides of its leaves are amazing. And it is one, actually, I say very, very easy, it is one that can be quite susceptible to mealybugs. The reason this plant isn't quite as big as it once was is because I did have to chop it back at one point, I think about 1.5 years ago now, because it was so infested with mealybugs. But apart from that, I haven't encountered any other pests on it, and it has been very straightforward. Again, very low maintenance, very adaptable. And this one's actually a good example to show you of a couple of things. The first one being, I know I said that I kind of decorated some of the other pots a little bit more, and this one, as you can see, I've done some drawing on some ribbon. I've put some other ribbon and kind of different types of cord up the top. But also another question that I get asked a lot is, when I use this type of macrame hanger, how do I stop the string getting wet? And the answer is I don't. I know I probably should. I just position it so that the knot is not exactly on the holes. So when I water it through, it might get a little bit damp, but because it's like able to dry, and it's not like in a what am I saying? It just, I don't know. I've never had issues with mold or anything like that. Like, it just seems to evaporate in the normal room conditions, and it's fine. It can be a little bit drippy, so I tend to just like leave this one to drain for a little bit longer. And if need be, you can just like squeeze out the knot. As I say, I've never found it to be an issue. In fact, let me just let this one drain, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So yeah, it hasn't fully drained, but just let you see it's barely wet at all. Yeah, it's kind of like, I can feel it's a little bit damp, but it's not bad. So yeah, I don't do anything special. I literally just shove it to one side and water the plant. And my Skindapsa Silver Hero, this is one that I included in, oh my God, again, it's so curly, it needs a drink so badly. But I included in my plants that I'm struggling with video, and it's not that it's a difficult plant per se, it's just one that is very like, it gives you a lot of runners. It's very good at pushing out stretches of growth that don't have any foliage on, which can make it look quite sparse. And I did think that maybe that's because I was growing it as a hanging plant and not a moss pole climbing plant. And a lot of you in the comments confirmed this. A lot of you said that you had this plant as well and were having the exact same issues unless you were growing it on a moss pole. So I think that is something that I do need to do, because I've got lots of sections of it. Oh, just decapitated one section. But I've got lots of sections of it. And in fact, here's a good example of like a stretch of growth with no leaves. But yeah, I've got lots of bits propagating, and my plan was to just pot them all back up together at some point and get a lovely big full one going. But if it's going to just keep doing this, I think even then it will look quite straggly. So as much as I want to grow it as a hanging plant, sadly, the plant doesn't want to cooperate. So it is how it is for now, for the time being. And I think at some point I'm going to have to make the transition and start growing it a little bit differently. It's a shame, because I love just having that like splash of like bluey green hanging there. But hey ho. And this is the one that I mentioned before that is similar in structure to the Epipremnum Global Green. This is the Pothos Enjoy, and oh my God, it is just beautiful. And this is one of the plants that I would say, if you like it and if you're tempted by it, unless you're prepared to wait a very long time, I would recommend buying this plant big, just because I had, oh, in fact, I don't even think it needs a water. I had this plant, I had sections of this plant for years, and I had them growing in my cabinet, and while they were doing well, the rate at which this one grows is so incredibly slow. Like, eventually I got a little bit fed up of waiting for it, and I saw this as a big plant in Malvern, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna get it. And I don't have any regrets in doing so. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I love having one that I can now kind of look at and appreciate from afar instead of having to get up really close to and look at. It's just been one of the slowest houseplants I think I have ever encountered. But yeah, those are all of the ones on my, apart from one in semi-hydro at the end, but those are all of my ones on my hanging rail watered. As I say, I have got ones such as the one above me, which is a Epipremnum cruciforme. I've also got some obviously trailing plants up the top there, but those ones, I mean, I do in a very similar way to this, but they tend to have a different watering schedule. I don't know if any of you guys do this. I tend to like mentally group plants into areas that I want to tackle on certain days, and my hanging rail, I almost always go through and check every single plant on that rail in one go, even if I don't water them all, just because it makes my life easier. I've also got my Hoya Gratus in the window here, along with some Hoya pubera cuttings in this gorgeous little propagation station that Ross made. Honestly, I've got so many weird little creatures popping up and becoming planty things. It's really, really awesome. But yeah, this, oh my goodness, this has definitely been the most fun I've had going through my hanging plants and watering them in a really long time. So thank you so much for keeping me company. I hope I've managed to answer questions that you had about how I do things with my hanging plants. If you've got any other questions, drop them down below in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them and cover them in a video at some point soon. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.
Stay sexy, plant lovers.